Grace, welcome to another video. I know it's been a while. I've been kind of busy with other things, and my focus has not really been on Yu-Gi-Oh, but I occasionally have thoughts about the game that I want to share. And I realized that I had spent over the last year quite a bit of time working on like light aggro strategies and playing games and matches, and I even had a little bit of tournament success with this type of thing. And I never really shared it with anyone online or made a video about it. And so I wanted to at least make this so that for whatever reason this is the last video on this channel, that it at least exists, and that this is somehow on the internet in case somebody's ever curious about these strategies, or they're interested in playing something like this. They can have a good starting point at least, because I have put a lot of time into this, and it's not perfect, but it's my ideas at least. So long story short, this is light aggro. I've talked a bit about the fairy stuff and all of that on my channel before, but this is just pure light aggro. Essentially what this is warriors, but not as good. I mean, just being perfectly honest. You get to catch your opponent off guard a little bit. I think that it does have some kind of surprise factors to it. Like I said, I do think it doesn't quite have that upside that warriors does, because you don't get to play BLS, and you don't have access to like Donzalug, which can be quite powerful in certain spots. But other than that, it really doesn't play way too much differently from your standard warrior list in Go format. But at the same time, it does kind of attack from some different angles, and it can, like I said, have a bit of an element of surprise to it that may potentially give you an edge if you're looking for one, or if you want to play something a little bit different, something that's a little bit in your face, something that's pretty fun to play, I think, in my opinion. So that is this deck. This is one of the variations of light aggro. I'm going to show two today. This variation, I bubbled a FLC probably 3 or 4 or 5 months ago. I can't remember exactly how much it was. Yeah, I ended up 6-3, 7-3 in Swiss. I can't remember specifically. Yeah, I was on the bubble, and it was just a game 3 that I misplayed pretty bad. It ended up costing me the top. So, I mean, I was one game away virtually from topping a major with this deck. So I think that it can hang in a competitive environment if played properly. I think it has some kind of different ways to attack your opponent that might catch them off guard. But in the other hand, it plays pretty similarly to your standard warrior deck, just slightly different. And it's fun. It's just a different way to play it. And, I wanted to put it out here on the internet. So, the main idea, of course, being that you're playing the standard light, the best light aggro cards in Go format, of course, being these warrior monsters, being the Blade Knights, the Sasuke's, the Warrior Lady. Freed is a really cool addition because you're playing so many lights. You get to play him. He's really fun and quite powerful in the right instances, especially with double Rhoda in the deck. You can search him whenever you need to pop your opponent's BLS or their Chaos Sorcerer or their Zombira in certain instances. Kaiku is a pretty big problem for this card, though, because obviously he can't vanish, so he can't get his effect off. So that can be a bit of a problem sometimes. But the idea being that I'm running 2 Blade Knights because you're often not able to get down to only one other monster in hand to get him up to 2,000, namely because you are running a higher monster count in this deck. The problem with this light aggro stuff that I figured out after a lot of time of testing and playing it is, I kind of wanted to make a deck that plays similarly to Earth aggro. This deck that is able to, swarm the field, able to put a lot of damage on board, while also utilizing special summons to swarm the board even faster, potentially setting up return. I know that, Earth aggro doesn't usually play return, but the same kind of concept that like Soul Impurity and Light is basically like a Gigantes. It functions in the same way that Gigantes does in Earth aggro, this additional monster that you can put on board to swarm with damage and be super, super aggressive. And the problem is that it's a very tough balance to strike, because in these aggro lists, you don't want to clog your hand with monsters. That's some of the biggest no-nos in aggro decks that will cost you games, is those games where you draw too many monsters. That's obviously a huge problem. So you need to have like a limited monster count, but at the same time, the summoning requirement of getting 2 Lights banished for Soul Impurity and Light is sometimes hard to meet. This card can definitely be bricky. So it's a tough balance to strike in the monster lineup, and that's what I tried to do here with this list. So double Blade Knight, you don't want to have, running 16 monsters, so you're not always going to be able to get them up to 2,000. Then you end the Tribe. Of course, this is like the one, light, non-light addition to the other Warrior Toolbox cards of Mystic Swordsman level 2 and Exiled Force, but it's just a staple in the format. 3 Sasuke's. This is kind of like your, this is really what the deck kind of revolves around, is these Blade Knights and these Sasuke's, getting them out early, baiting out your opponent's battle traps, just getting right in your opponent's face very quickly. And then once these kind of funnel into the grave, that's when you can bring out the Soul Impurity Lights and make the plays with Freed, stuff like that. So then 1 Freed, double Soul Impurity. This version, I think, is a good balance of these banished cards, because they can be finicky, but at the same time they can be powerful. So 1 Magician of Faith, it's an additional light, but it also kind of functions in the same way that 1 Faith does in normal warrior decks, where sometimes your opponent will discard their noblemans because they know that you're playing an aggro deck, and sometimes you can get this off just the one of to kind of have in there to potentially recycle some powerful cards. The Mystic Swordsman level 2, Exile, just parts of your warrior toolbox. I played versions of this deck without these cards, but I think that if you're running double Rhoda, they're just too valuable. Yeah, they're just too good. There's so many instances that I played like versions without it where I just really wish I had a Mystic Swordsman level 2 or an Exiled, especially because I'm running a version with Premature Burial and Call of the Haunted, which both pair really well with Exiled Force, allowing you to recycle that spot removal. DD Warrior Lady, a pretty important part of this deck, because it's light, gets banished, so you can bring it back with return. Potentially also, of course, Shining Angel floats into it. Shining Angel is kind of, it's one of those cards that people meme it. It's, some people say it sucks, some people are, fans of it. I think it's okay in this deck. It's just, you need to have additional lights to be able to support playing these cards, and it's fine in a, an aggro sense. You need to make sure game 1, especially, that you're not setting this. In most instances, you want to be summoning this in attack position, and you gotta know the right times to bring it out. Sometimes you do want to crash it to, like, so, get both of your angels into grave and then bring out DD Warrior Lady or bring out Roulette Barrel, depending on the situation. Now, the Roulette Barrel is kind of, a little controversial because it's not very good into Chaos Turbo, but it's good against most aggro matchups. Really, I wanted to try in this version of the deck to have another, thing that Shining Angel could float into, because there's certain times where, like, if my opponent has a Sangan on board where I want to banish with the DD Warrior Lady, so I'll, Rhoda search for DD Warrior Lady, and then I won't have a target for the Shining Angels anymore. So I wanted to try a version that played an extra target for Shining Angel. Maybe that wasn't right. I mean, I don't know. This could probably just be a 3rd Shining Angel or a different card. But at that point, if you replace this with, another non-light card, then your ratios get a little weird. But so the rest of this is pretty standard, like warrior stuff. I like the Smashing Ground a lot in this, in the same way that you have it in Earth aggro, just so that you can make sure you clear the board and punch in for a lot of damage. Draw Greed for a bit of consistency, just an overall good card. Pretty much everything else in this is kind of fairly standard. No spell trap removal in the main deck, just because I don't really think that like Dust Tornadoes are that great game 1. But I don't know. There's different variations of the way you can play this, depending on the meta, depending on what you expect to play against. You could replace these with Dust Tornadoes. You could do things with the Trap Dust Juice, take them out if you don't like them. I don't know. It really is up to you. I think I like with just playing these 3. I think 1 Return is the right number. I know that 1 Return is a little weird. It's one of those cards you just want to see it like at the late game, because if you do find it at the right time, it can definitely just win the game. But sometimes it can also be just a complete brick if you find it early. So I don't know. these are just my thoughts. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go with this, but I did fairly well playing this deck in that FLC. I also played a Go Format Friday tournament with this deck where I went undefeated. Obviously the competition was not as stiff, and it was a quite small tournament, but I did end up winning with this deck. So I think it has power. I think it, like I said, it plays like aggro, like warrior, excuse me, but you have just a little bit of explosiveness, but you kind of lack a little bit of upside. So that's kind of the vibe. For siding, there's a lot of different ways that you can go, a lot of different things that I tried. I've been big lately. If you watch my my video about my Worlds run, Go Format Worlds, where I played warrior and I sided into a lot of flips. I still like that concept. It's pretty straightforward. I'm not gonna get into the specifics of it. They're siding out their Nox, they're bringing in Zombira and stuff like that. And I think these cards play really nicely into these powerful flip effects. So basically games 2 against like Chaos Turbo and Chaos Control, I bring in the Faith and these 2 Magical Merchants because they're also light, help you mill lights to set up your return and stuff like that. I usually will like side both of these in and then side out the Shining Angels and the Roulette Barrel. I think usually I just take these 3 and put them in place of these 3. Another option that you can do is bring in Mirage Dragons. This is something I was testing out and it was quite powerful against Chaos Turbo games 2 and 3 when they're siding into triple copies of Sakuretsu and other battle traps. Having a way to prevent your opponent from activating those battle traps can be really good. Obviously the stat line is not great, 1600. If they go Tsukiyomi, if they have a Zombira, it can potentially just run this over, so it's good to have some protection for it. But if you bring this out at the right time when you're getting super aggressive, it can just win you the game straight up. And I had games during the FLC run where people were wasting a lot of valuable removal just to get rid of this 1600 body. So I thought it was pretty good, but something you can try out. The rest of this is kind of standard side deck stuff. You definitely want to use the Surpriest as opposed to like King Tiger, Wenku, or anything for control because of its light stat line. So this is the one that I made a deep run at the FLC with, and then here's another version that I like a lot. That is not it. That is something old. Here we go. This is the version that I have been having a lot of fun with as well lately. This is I think it's more similar to like Pikatron's warrior deck that runs Thunder Dragons, like a solemnless version of a warrior deck essentially. In this one we are running Thunder Dragons as another way to quickly get lights into the grave. I like this deck a lot in a meta where Trap Dust Shoot is not being played as much. I think that it really is kind of meta dependent. If you're expecting a lot of Trap Dust Shoot, I would probably play the first version. If not so much, then this version can be really powerful and even more explosive because we're running triple Soul Impurity and Light and double return. So this one is I'd say just similar but even more explosive, a little bit less controlling. You're just trying to like really get after it. This one plays much more similar, I would say, to like Earth Aggro. It's just really in your face. Same kind of monster lineup applies, but because we're playing the Thunder Dragons, which is just like instant lights into your grave, we get to play the triple, the third Soul Purity and Light, which you can still brick on this stuff, but running triple, Jar Greed, Pot of Greed, you have ways to kind of get through your deck and eventually kind of take care of these if you happen to brick on them. So yeah, it's pretty similar. I don't want to get into too much of the specifics. You can change some of this stuff if you'd like. Similar thinking with the side deck. I don't have the faith in the main deck of this one. I also am not running Dust Shoots in this one. I think this was made like a few months ago when like Dust Shoot wasn't as prevalent, and I don't know if that's still the case. I haven't really kept up with the meta as much, but I like it a lot for that. You see the Roulette Barrel on the side just to bring it in for the aggro decks. But I think both of these decks are really fun, and they can really catch your opponent off guard. They can put a lot of damage on board really quickly. If you can just go like turn 1 Blade Knight, they don't have an answer for it. Then turn 2 you ditch a Thunder Dragon, summon a Sasuke, and then you can discard another Thunder Dragon, go Soul Impurity, and you're already attacking for close to lethal that quick. So it happens very fast, especially with the returns. You can really just steamroll your opponent game 1, and then game 2 you bring in these Faiths. I know Merchant doesn't go great with Thunder Dragon, so you can potentially mill it. So maybe that's something to change. But just being able to like control the pace of the game a little bit more with the Faith and just go up in card advantage by resolving her for free because they're not going to keep their Nox against you. So that can be really powerful. But yeah, that's the general idea. I don't have a ton more to add, I don't think. But yeah, if you have any comments, let me know what you think about this deck. I just think it's another way to play an aggro strategy that's not warrior. I've tried a lot of different stuff with this type of deck. I've tried the I'm terrible at remembering card names. The chick with the bongos in her that's like 1900, but if you control a non-light monster, she gets destroyed. I can't remember the name. I tried that. That's a decent card in here. I think like the field spell like makes your light monsters go up. Like I think we've learned at this point that sort of thing just doesn't work in the modern Go Format meta. It's just too slow. It's too finicky. You're wasting a card just to gain a few extra attacks. It's just not worth it. I think playing field spells in Go Format it just doesn't really work unless the strategy completely revolves around it. So I don't mess with any of that stuff. But there's different methods you can try. So yeah, that is light aggro in a nutshell. Give it a shot. And yeah, thanks for watching. Until the next one. Bye.